Well, thank you all for being here today to listen to our story. Thank our relatives for traveling and visiting, and all you for making this an important issue to come and listen to, because I think it is one of the most important issues that we have on the table right now within salmon, because I really do think that this Atlantic salmon is the downfall of our natural stocks with their diseases and pens that are in the migrational route of the smolt that goes out, and then bypass those net pens on their way out to the ocean, and they're on their way into the little tributaries that they try to survive in. And I've been a fisherman for all my life, probably going on 45 years now, and that's really scary for what the future has if we do, if we don't have fish to fish in our community, our fish to feed our people, our fish to do our ceremonies. That's the reality we're in. We can feel it in our communities that we don't have enough fish to survive on through the winter, or survive on to do our ceremonies, and to even want our children to become fishermen, because what does that look like? That's pretty scary. So with this Atlantic salmon, I think that a lot of people say it's climate change and ocean conditions and other things like that, but I really think it's the net pens and the Atlantic salmon that those diseases that come with that. I was fishing back in 1983, I think, and I caught some of these Atlantic salmon out in the Straits of Juan de Fuca. I had a couple hundred of them. That's 30 years, almost 30 years ago. That's how long these have been around in these waters. And they say that collectively, through all the pens from here to Alert Bay, there's over 500,000 that escape a year. That's bigger than our sockeye runs and runs that we get to fish. That's a huge escapement. So what's that impact? So we don't know. So hopefully that with the work that the tribe has done and the work that the state of Washington is doing, that we can be rid of these Atlantic salmons in British Columbia. That's the hope that I have, and we'll work in that direction to help them and do whatever we can to support them in that endeavor. But we'll get back to the spill. They didn't let the tribes know until a week later that, I think it happened on Saturday, and we didn't find out until the next week. And I took a ride out. There he is right there. Jay Julius, he gives me a call that afternoon, and he says, "You want to ride out and look at the pens?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll ride with you." So we ride out, look at the pens, and it's collapsed. Fish are jumping everywhere, and we're thinking, geez, what is this? And we're on the phone on a conference phone on the boat with WFW, State of Washington, the tribes, and they don't have a plan. Nobody knows what to do. They don't have a recovery plan. Well, we got our sportsmen out here. They'll catch them, and hopefully they'll mop it up. And I think that Cook Industry had a small recovery plan. They had a a beach saying they tried catching some fish. I don't know what they caught. I think they ended up catching a couple hundred a period of a week, but it wasn't much. And there was 3 or 4 of us on the boat, and we were talking, and he said, geez, we can catch these. We can catch these. So we got on the phone with our chairman and says, we can catch them. Because we were still on the conference call, and that WDFW and DNR, it was on a Friday, and they say, well, let's get back on the call Tuesday. And I said, we can't wait that long. So they just wanted to keep pushing it off and off and off, and it wasn't that urgent of a deal to them. I don't think. But by the time we got back in from that boat ride, our chairman had it open the next morning, so that that's how fast it went off. And we found out when we were fishing these things, we fished them for almost 2 weeks, I guess 2 weeks, and we kind of figured out a pattern is that they like being in the shallow bays where I think that's where they felt comfortable at that time, because they were just broke loose, and we noticed that after a week or so, they were kind of starting to disappear, so we'd have to run around and look for them, but we'd always find them in a south-facing bay, a shallow south-facing bay, so that was, we were starting to figure out their pattern, because they were looking for places that felt like they were contained. But, I think they adapted and were starting to get wild. So they were starting to spread, to all the bays. So we ended up catching about 300, 200, 43,000 fish. I think that was almost 300 and... What was it? Yeah, we end up catching about 400,000 pounds. But when Cook first says they lost 4,000 or 5,000 fish, that's 40,000 pounds. But come to find out, they lost 3 million pounds of fish that they had those fish in one pen, 3 million pounds. Can you imagine that, how packed those fish were in one pen? 3 million pounds. That was even hard to comprehend. But, and I really want to give thanks to our fishermen that stuck it out, that really pushed forward and got the job done, because I think if we didn't do it, we wouldn't have these permits, that are only going to be here till 2025. We could still be looking at that stuff. That's a big industry we were fighting. It was huge. And I want to thank our leadership for really pushing forward and really playing hardball with them, because, when you're fighting against an industry that's one of the largest in the world in Atlantic salmon, that is huge. And our leadership went up against them, and I'm really glad that they stuck it out, and they didn't back down, because they knew that that's the thing that we had to do. We to save our salmon is that we had to get rid of this invasive species in the Salish Sea. So, it was a good, even though we were fighting a fight, it was a really it made me feel good on how our community came together as one. They weren't doing it for a monetary, for anything monetary. There wasn't, we were using up our own resources, our own gas, our own money, and to catch these fish. And all the fishermen did that. So we just kept looking at it like it's a spill, and that's the only way we could comprehend it. We got to fight it like an oil spill. And it felt good to be called a first responder, and be there and get them out of the water. So I think after 3 weeks, they've all disappeared. We couldn't find them anymore. So I don't know if they wandered further out into Straits of Juan de Fuca or wandered further into British Columbia, that we couldn't find them anymore. So I wish we were there a week earlier when the spill went off. I think we could have really contained them. But by the state not telling us for a week and letting us know that there was even a spill, they did some damage there by just not being upfront with the nation, even upfront with the people of the state of Washington. So with that, I'd just like to say again, thank you for being here and listening to our story. Thank you. Haishka.